close it up and go back to general stuff.
Timekeeper. Each lot, a little better.
Unofficial job. How do we want to do this?
Discussion. Okay, this is, what we basically did here, is, and Chantal helped me out with this as well. This is Chantal, she's our new planner, everyone, hasn't met her.
Welcome.
We basically just looked at a number of different cities, kind of what they're doing, what's kind of going on, and their personnel policy manuals, and kind of mixed what we thought was some of the, better parts of their manuals. So, again, this is all just draft, but there are some, main decisions, key policy decisions that y'all need to make. So that's why we want to have this discussion here, and then also directors can give some input as far as, in regards to their department as well. So, some of the people summary sheet, high point. Some of the main issues that we need to look at, and we're not going to go through the entire manual page by page, as it is 100 and some pages.
No, let's go through it page by page.
I think
You
so,
want it?
I'm ready, I've got mine on mark.
Okay, go ahead.
On page number 2, draft number 2?
Did you really go through?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do it that way.
No, I was kidding.
She wasn't.
Well, let's vote on it instead.
No action, no action.
If there's typos and,
Oh, it's more than that.
we'll go through it then, let's roll.
I just have a question on one of them. What's a computer employee?
That is,
Basic.
go ahead.
No, yeah, somebody, it's for exempt, I think that's the wording you're getting it from.
Yeah.
The exempt section. Usually your exempt employees are people that are, your professionals, your accountants, your directors, somebody that's using a high level of computers, training and so forth, so.
What does it mean though, computer employee?
Somebody that uses.
It's the FLSA definition. FLSA is the Federal Labor Standards Act, and it's for IT employees that primarily focus their work on repairing computers and working on computers constantly. They're considered non-exempt unless most of their time is management. So that's why that's in there.
Oh, okay.
It's a funny IT thing, and since we don't have any IT employees currently, that's really not pertinent, but it's useful to have in case we do hire an IT employee.
I thought maybe
I
it
only
was
know that
similar.
because my husband works in an IT department.
Okay.
So this sheet that she was just handing out to you guys in summary just kind of had some of the main points. But again, if you guys want to go page by page, we're welcome to do that.
The nepotism. We got this real detailed chart in there. Why don't we just eliminate all nepotism?
Do you want to go to the page?
12 and 13.
Just clarifying exactly, so there's no questions exactly what we mean.
But I think we shouldn't allow any at all. I think we should not, even though it says it has to be department heads and city so-and-so, and I can't remember what it said, the mayor, elected officials, department heads, but you can have hourly employees that are related, and there's nothing to prohibit that. I think it should prohibit all nepotism.
Sure.
Even with other departments that they work in separate departments.
I don't agree with that, because it's like, Roy's son worked for the library. Then Roy gets elected to city council. He didn't have anything to do with that.
I think, doesn't it
says something about it there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, yeah, you know, so we need some definitions in there, you know, so what's what, and what you can do and what you can't do, you know.
Mayor?
I think, when I read it, I thought it stated that,
Pretty much.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
On page 12, under B are the definitions, and I know the nepotism definitions with the, I don't know if it's the Fair Labor Standards Act, but which one of the acts it is. It defines that it's generally second, third degree consanguinity or sanguinity, and I believe the chart just defines what is consanguinity and what is sanguinity. But I had a question also on number 4, and of course I'll follow whatever policies the city sets, but my question is one of philosophical, the same thing that was just brought up. If a person is hired by the city as an employee, not number 4, number C indicates if a relative indicated in this chart is elected to a position, then either that person that's considering running for election has to decide, I'm not going to run because my relative might have to lose their job, or they run and their relative has to lose their job. So, coming from a librarian perspective, that particular application of number C on page 13 seems to limit freedom of service to the community for the people that would want to be elected. And, you know, Anthony and Mr. Magno were a good example. I mean, I could just imagine in a home, Dad might be saying, you know, I would really
I
like
would've ran
to
for
serve
city
the
council
city.
sooner. Just kidding.
You know, or on the other hand, you know, a dad might say, I don't want my child working there, so I'm gonna run for an elected position so they can, you know, go do something else. But it seems a little bit limiting, and I'd like council to consider that.
Well, you know, we had another one, we had, you know, Carter, his grandson was, you know, an employee, and then he ran for city council, so, you know, I mean, it is a small town.
Are we gonna consider that? And, I mean, cause we do have a cousin-in-law issue right now, I think.
Cousin-in-law, that's not on the chart.
Yeah, second degree of cousin-in-law.
Yeah, it is, it's under, offended.
Second degree.
Sounds like a felony, doesn't it?
It does kind
Not claiming.
of. Well, we have an 8-year.
Well, it doesn't, but it doesn't say if
5
it's,
months, 6 months.
the way I understand it, if, as long as they're not a department head or a council member or the mayor,
Well, I guess kind of what I was getting at, I guess I wanna make sure I don't lose his name.
that's the way I read it.
Are you talking about?
Yeah, your cousin-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Cousin-in-law?
So I, how is it, is that the way it's supposed to read, that it's just prohibits between department heads, mayors, and city councils?
I thought you were on this section more, do you?
Yeah.
Being a type A municipality, do you not have to go by what the state says?
You can do that.
State,
Well, they tell you what nepotism is.
they define what nepotism
They
is,
define
they don't
it,
tell
but
you that you
They
can't
tell you
have
what you can or can't do.
They just define what nepotism is, they don't
The
tell
city
you.
of Grapevine, they have nepotism, but they have, basically, they just can't be a supervisor. They
Yeah.
have fire department
That's what
members,
most
all
places
working in the same, working in the fire department, like brothers and stuff, they just can't supervise each other.
And that's the way this reads.
What would you do in a town where everybody was killing everybody?
Well, that's what they are.
Aubrey.
Yeah, all the state does is just define that relative.
Well, that's the way this reads, but, the thing
Well, I
is,
guess it's in the election codes. There's something in the election codes about nepotism. That's where I'm getting it, Harry. There's
Well,
something about running, there's a nepotism type thing under the election codes.
I can totally understand if it was like a supervisor or the city administrator or something and akin to a council member, because you're dealing with the budget and the payroll. Working at the library, I don't see a big deal with it.
well, that's the way I read it.
I do have a question, actually, it goes back to Councilman Goins' first bringing up on page 2. I didn't see reserve officers or volunteer firemen covered under any of the definitions.
No.
So would that mean that they wouldn't be held to the same standard as the policy? But it also goes to nepotism. It doesn't really happen in our agency because we're a little bit smaller. But doesn't the fire department kinda have deals where like dad's been a fireman with Aubrey for so many years, and then when his son's finally old enough, it's kinda like he's a volunteer fireman? Would that kinda cross into the nepotism also?
The way it's written today, yes. But I can tell you, when I came onto the department, I would not have been allowed to come on the department.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, I think especially with volunteer firemen, it's kind of a small town, that's kind of part of their heritage and all. Dad's on the fire department, son's volunteer fireman, his son, and so on and so on. So I don't know if that has to be added or omitted, but right now, reserves and firemen are covered.
That's probably just exactly what they want to eliminate.
Well, and then in number M, it says there are only 3 people that this applies to, and it's the city secretary, the human resource department, and the police department. I think it should be all department heads.
The way that it reads, and again, I lean very, very heavily on, Frisco, the city of Frisco's nepotism policy for this. The way that it currently reads is that, 2 people can be related that are in the same department, one just can't supervise the other. And, I think that makes sense. I personally wouldn't want to supervise my husband. I love him to death, but that would just be bad. And he would be very upset if I had to tell him that he was not performing well, and as a result, I probably would not tell him that he was performing poorly. So, cause I like him, he's a nice guy. But, the only positions that kind of to narrow that down, to say that it doesn't really matter what happened, but you can't be related to somebody that has a job elsewhere, because at the end of the day, you kind of end up supervising them in some capacity, in some way, would be the city secretary's office, the human resources department, and the police department. Because, I mean, quite frankly, if a police officer has to go and tell, his sister Susie, who works in, the planner,
Have to go arrest her?
Yeah, I mean, that's not good,
But why would you want it in the library and in public works? Why would you allow it in those departments when you don't allow it in these 3?
Well, the supervisory situation and not being,
Because the library wouldn't be over somebody or have anything to do with anybody in
Right.
public works.
Most of them I think has to do with either human resources, which, because.
Those 3 right there?
Yeah.
Not even the police department, that's a new one for me. The city secretary here I understand, because that position is our human resources department. But, the police department, that's new to me. I mean, even where I work, I mean, human resources, if you're related to anybody there, you can't work in the city, period.
Or the city manager, or the city secretary,
Right.
It doesn't say city manager.
that,
city administrator.
Frisco said city manager, and
Yeah.
I put in city secretary's office, cause it effectively,
I would just put secretary, manager, administrator, so
Yeah.
Well, you
grow,
can't
whatever
compare
you
city
grow.
manager to city secretary.
No, but effectively, without there being a city manager or city administrator of any type, it was just, well.
It's just in there,
The
in case
person
you,
that
if
controls the
you've got
records
one,
if the human
then it
resources
would be in your
department is
personnel
there.
policy.
Y'all clear what we're doing with this section?
Clear as mud.
I disagree, but that's all right.
Well, you don't have to just disagree, but leave it all right. I tend to agree that some of this stuff needs to be changed. So
Yeah,
let's
gotta be changed,
let's
yeah.
talk about it and let's change it. That's what we're here for.
So PD, do you think,
I mean, let's
do you
leave-
think PD should be in there? I mean, is there really a reason? Like you said, you've never seen it in there before, so.
Well-
What do you think, Tom?
It's unusual, I've never seen that before either, for the whole police department, because you've got David Bruce Kim that half the town, and I mean, does that mean he,
That's what I was
So
saying.
anybody that works in town that'd be kin to him, he couldn't be a, they couldn't,
That's one issue with being in a town like this, it's so small that people are gonna be kin some, to a degree.
So I think we've got some revisions to make in it. I think, sounds to me like the police department probably needs to at least come out of there temporarily. We can always I mean, this isn't set in stone, we're not, creating the 10 Commandments here. This is
So we go through legal review and everything, I'm sure the attorney will have his notes on it as well,
So this is not the one that Clark made?
Nope.
Where's the one that Clark made? We don't
He
get to
didn't
see
make
it?
one, this has all of his revisions on it though, says his notes.
Did
as
this
far as
start
he
from
got.
his?
What's that?
Did this originate from the work that he did?
I did look somewhat at it, but no, we pretty much started from scratch. I mean, he pretty much nixed the entire thing and put comments on it, so I figured there's no point of.
Well, all that stuff that's in his is in there.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, send us what Clark did.
Yeah.
I'd like to have
Send
that.
Deborah what Clark.
Okay.
And then I
He
think.
just, he just kind of put comments, or, hey, we need to decide on this, or, you know, we don't have a policy on this, so it's kind of just more of a lot of questions.
I'd like to see that.
Okay.
And then I don't know where this belongs, but I think that we should not have employees who are able to work in 2 different departments within the city. Like if we have a person in Public Works that wants to work in the city hall, I don't think that person should be able to hold down be in both departments.
Hey, Scott, you gotta go.
Yeah, no,
Can't be a fireman, can't be the code enforcement officer too.
He's all right, he wants to be a fireman anyway, so.
So what are you gonna do?
Well, I think we need to make an exception
Fire?
for that one, but I think. Well, we can do that. But I think overall, I don't think we want to encourage it in the city. I mean, one person would be an exception.
I like the idea of having somebody cross-trained,
Cross-trained,
capable
yeah.
Well, that's,
of working in both.
yeah, that's the other
departments.
question, if I decided to carry my police commission on the police side, would that not be acceptable?
It wouldn't be under that scenario, no.
It also kind of gives.
I'm thinking more about hourly people.
But it also gives us some kind of flexibility payroll-wise.
How?
We can take it out of 2 different funds.
I think you're gonna lose your loyalty to whatever job position they're in.
Well, there's certainly an
I don't
aspect
know,
of
we
that.
got somebody in Public Works over there, that she's up here in the city. You have a problem with her?
That was the way her job was designed though.
Yeah, but just what you're saying, you can't work in one department and do work in the other
But
department.
but she gets all of all of her job functions are Public Works.
Well, we would be paying that person out of one, we wouldn't pay him out of 2 deals.
Mayor,
Okay, forget it.
I know a few years ago, there was an idea to cross-train, and
I just think that's a bad idea.
it worked out to where, I think only the library personnel came to the city and worked when people were on vacation or whatever, for a long lunch, or, you know, just for a few hours here and there. And what it did for us, I don't know, I can't say how it would affect the other people, was it gave us a better understanding of things that went on over here, and, you know, and it also gave the city at that time a better understanding of how we responded to things, with the type of notes that we left and what we did, you know, it created some conversation among the departments. And I know I asked Isaac recently, we have a 20-hour employee, if there was a 20-hour job up here, could he apply for it, so that, you know, he could.
I think there are certain roles in
I
the
don't
city.
know.
I certainly see some of the frontline employees at the library as wanting to grow into something differently, and having that capability of cross-training makes sense to me, but there are, you know, to Deborah's point, there are gonna be very few scenarios like that. I mean, we've got Scott, nobody from Public Works is gonna be cross-training into the fire department. I mean, those guys are busy enough, and firemen aren't gonna be cross-training somewhere else either, so you're gonna have very little of it, but I'm not sure you can change the policy to exclude it, just in case there are certain instances
We have,
where it does.
the reason I say it is because we have so many departments within our city that do not like each other, and that's all they can do is bash each other, it seems like all the time. So I'm thinking if we cross-train these people, they're gonna stay loyal to the department they came from, and when they go into the other one, they're gonna look for something to bash people.
Well,
If they do that,
you're treating,
You, right? I mean.
Well, I don't know.
you're treating the symptoms, you're not treating the cause, in that scenario. I mean, we've got, if that's the scenario, we've got bigger issues to deal with. And you don't deal with it in a personnel manual. You deal with it from a HR perspective, and us and other people have to get involved in that thing. I know it's not gonna be easy. I'm not in any way suggesting that, you know, a sit down with me is gonna solve a problem, but you can't treat the symptoms. You gotta treat the cause of the problem.
Wouldn't cross-training, I mean, wouldn't that be good for a small town? This is just for me. Wouldn't that be better for a small town?
I mean, in theory, sure, but-
Yeah, I mean, the city of Frisco, of course, you got funds everywhere, but for us, I mean, wouldn't it, like, if I was working in one department and he called and he got something on Brockett Street he needs to do, I live right there, hey, you know, let me go out and help. I think that can only help us, but I think to exclude one person, like what was said, I think that just causes a fit years from now. You know, why was that one position you know, giving leniency and not others. Like, if we're gonna do it, if you're not, not.
The thing about cross-training, if someone, for an example, I mean, when Nancy was here, if something would have happened to her and it was payroll day, if somebody knew how to do payroll, they could just step right in and do it. And, I mean, I'm a court clerk and I'm the building clerk and I've worked in finance and I'm a city secretary. I'm cross-trained. And that is a benefit to hold an employee there, is the fact that you're cross-trained. You guys wouldn't be looking at hiring a professional payroll service if you had somebody cross-trained that knew how to do payroll. Now you gotta try to go out here and find somebody, because obviously nobody knows how to do it.
I don't think that's.
I don't think
I
that's the
mean,
case, no.
Well, Nancy was doing it.
Huh?
Nancy was doing payroll. Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff that I don't think that you're totally clear on.
But I mean, just from the looks of things, now you've got to hire a professional service to do payroll.
Well-
I don't understand that.
Why? It's easier.
Well, there's.
Y'all said you didn't have any money, now you've got
Yeah,
money.
the thing is,
Don't
we're
save
gonna
that
get
much
bogged
money.
down in this if we're not careful.
Yeah, okay, the next one that I
Yeah,
have
okay.
is number 104.01. We've got people like police and fire and public works who will have designated work schedules outside the normal hours. What about the library? They're not 8 to 5 either.
What page are you on?
Drive 22.
Yeah, but, yeah, okay,
Can we, real quick, before we get there, can we talk about the 20-mile, living within 20 miles of the city to work here?
Is that in there?
101.11 residency requirements, which is a Frisco requirement.
Yeah, I thought that was too small too. Well, that'll knock Kathy out.
Let's see, how far does Bill live from here?
12 miles.
11.9 mile radius.
12.3 actually.
How far do you live, Kathy?
He is at 19.
Well, that's regarding the employees that require a specific response time.
Yeah.
I
but
think it's for
yeah.
everybody.
Oh, I don't think that, I think you just need to take that one out there.
well, hang on a second.
I don't mind the residency, but I mean within a.
It says.
What if you have an on-call police officer who lives 40 miles from here?
Yeah, that's.
The whole policy was,
You know,
30
that,
miles.
that's his call, he hired him.
He got to sleep
Well,
PD while he's on.
But if
call.
I get up
No,
and
it's
I
not his
drive
call.
3 hours to work down here at the.
No, with all
at that
due
job.
respect, it's not his call, because if that guy lives 40 miles from here and he's on call and he's 40 minutes to a response here and something happens to that person as a result of that response time, the city's liable for it and it's our responsibility at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, and
it
your
is our
responsibility is to hire a police chief that knows better to have somebody work 3 hours from here.
Well, we have a lot, Roy, we have a lot of guys that live out. I mean, I got a guy that lives in Denison.
But they're not on call,
Wait,
right?
well,
And he's not
I
gonna
don't
have
know,
somebody
he
on
could be-
call
I mean,
for 3
it's no
hours.
different if we call him in for, I mean, what is your definition of on call? Cause if I call him in for overtime,
I'm talking about, like, we don't have police coverage for a few hours a night. So somebody's responsible for a 911 call is gonna wake up, get in their car and come here.
Right.
That's different than one of your guys who says, hey, we're short a man, I need you to come in and cover a shift. You're not calling somebody in an emergency, saying rush to Aubrey
well,
to
I know
get to a
Frisco,
fire.
their policy is to go to work at Frisco, you gotta live within 20 miles of the station.
Frisco theoretically could
Well, I'm
make
just
you live
saying, I
in the
just
city
wanna
limits.
make sure we
You couldn't be within 20 minutes of there.
clarify that, because
Well,
with us, like I said, I got a guy that lives in Denison, well, that could be an issue, and if we're going strictly on call, then, I mean, I just think that,
And then that last sentence says that anybody allowed to operate a city vehicle between residence and work must live within the city limits, and that's just not possible. If somebody might
Well,
live
it
in
says
Fruitvale.
for a reasonable commuting range, as defined above, so it's within that 20 mile.
20
radius,
miles. But
scenario
Tommy
again.
said that the old procedure said 30 miles.
Well, again, it's a line in the sand that I think needs to be drawn, I just don't know what the line in the sand is, if it's 30, it's 30, I guess, the question is, what do we consider a reasonable response time to an emergency?
And the thing on that is, because we've talked about it
So
before.
are you talking about city employees or just police department?
I think it
Right.
says to be called to work in case of emergency. I would more clearly define that to mean either police only or police and fire if you make the radius.
But the public works guy, if there's some kind of emergency
Right.
for water or something, you don't want them to have to go check a truck out to come to your house. If it's on call person. you
No, I don't, but I also
Talked about
don't,
that, remember?
lives 40 miles driving my city work vehicle 40 miles to and from work every day. So, again, it's just, all we're doing is drawing a line in the sand. We just gotta determine where it's drawn. And we already have, is there something already in place that says 30 miles?
The whole policy says 30 miles.
Nobody squawked about the old policy, right?
No.
Just leave it at 30.
I was asking him, you know, what if, for the PD, cause you know, just as a citizen, if, you know, like he said, you know, he's on call 40 hours a week, you know, if he lived outside 20 miles, that would be horrible for me if I got somebody, you know, if I'm at gunpoint at my house, that sucks. So, you know, my question to him was, what if we just limit it to, how do you write it? Like, limit the chief to, okay, you can hire whoever, but only keep people on call inside that 20, but what he was saying, we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, they're not staffed enough to
Yeah,
be able to burden
we're not able to do
one or
that.
two people with the on-call
Right.
requirements to it.
I really don't think we have enough time to go through this whole policy manual tonight. I think we need to schedule like a longer workshop.
We can, I mean, here's what I think, well, it's fine.
Because this little summary of changes is not really all of the changes. That's
Well,
just
no.
a few of
It's
the
not
changes.
comprehensive, you're right.
Yeah.
No.
It's just trying to give some direction.
The summary of changes is the policy manual, because there's really no manual prior to it. I mean, there's documentations and there's little pieces of paper here
But
and
this
there.
one hasn't been given to Clark yet.
We've got a manual.
We've got a manual, we've got a manual.
We've got a manual, and Clark's looked at it, and he's
Yeah.
done some changes to it.
Cool.
And this one's just totally new.
It needed.
I got a manual ready now.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I guess that's my
But this
point.
is not a
Everything's
rewrite.
gonna be in here, everything's gonna be.
Oh, so
Everything.
everything's all.
Deborah, so yeah, everything that, all the changes that were made by Clark are in here.
But that's all. I mean, it doesn't, we don't, just the changes that were made by Clark. We don't
No.
know what the old policy says compared to this, and I think we should have both to compare.
Okay.
'Cause
Well, look, I mean, that's certainly your position to do that. I don't wanna look back and see what our old policy was. I mean, I'm looking
But you
forward to try to.
haven't even read this one, so you don't know for sure that this one's right.
I've read through some of it.
Some of
We
it.
didn't finish the whole thing, but we're not gonna finish the discussion here tonight. I certainly wasn't anticipating finishing the
Oh,
discussion here.
well, I thought we were.
If you want to think for a minute.
Well, it's a workshop, so at about 8:45, I'm getting up and leaving, whether we're done talking about this or not.
Yeah. I think it's just he wanted some kind of direction on just the highlights there. And then everybody go through it, and then we'll come back and go through it line by line.
That'd be great.
It's like a part-time employee definition is like, you look at his highlights, is that kind of where we wanna go, or do we wanna do something? Tell him to kind of do something different.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I mean, I got as much, I know we all do, got a bunch of stuff marked up, but, you know, a part-time employee, I did, got retirement, 7% of my check went into retirement now to this policy that no longer exists. The other issue we're having with, just real quick, when we changed the pay plan from weekly to every 2 weeks, it also financially impacted our staff because they went from getting, 19 hours of overtime, now they're getting 14, so actually, in reality, when we did that, they took a pay cut.
Did we budget for 19 hours of overtime per employee?
Yes, that's what the budget was done. When you go from a 7-day pay cycle, the employee can work, a firefighter and police officer can work 53 hours before they're getting overtime. Well, our guys work, some weeks they work 3 days, 3 24-hour shifts, which is 72 hours, so they get paid 19 hours of overtime, 5 hours straight time. But when you go to a 2-day, you get 106 hours, which anything over the 106 gives you your overtime. So in 5 shifts, basically 2 weeks, they work 5 shifts within 120 hours, which means they're getting paid 14 hours instead of 6.
My preference would be to just fix it in their pay.
And I'm fine with that, and I agree, I just want that brought
I'd rather
up,
have
we need
zero
to,
overtime.
we need to fix it where it's brought up.
And be done with it.
Well, they're gonna get, under FLSA, they're gonna get overtime no matter what.
Right, gotcha.
And the main issue is our old policy just says following FSLA standards. So you guys, the fact that we went to a 2-week pay period doesn't necessarily mean that we have to change their work period. You guys wanna stick with the 7-day work period, they're getting the 19 hours of OT, you can still do that. You guys can elect to have a 7-day work period, you know, going to a 14.
That's all right.
How's that not right?
If,
I talked to the attorney this morning about it.
I talked to an HR director yesterday about this because,
Our HR director?
yeah.
Yeah,
Not ours.
obviously.
Basically, FLSA stood up on it, I mean, we can say a 28-day pay cycle, but if you say you're on a 28-day pay cycle, how do you figure somebody's overtime? How do you pay them, if you're gonna pay them every 2 weeks, how do you know when they reach the overtime limit?
That's at the last check of the month.
Yeah, so I mean, or the way it's usually set up is they get paid once a month on a 20-day pay cycle. I mean, why did FLSA go in and put 7, 12, 14, 21, whatever the case may be? That's why they did that. So if you're on a 7-day pay cycle, you work 53 hours, they get overtime. If you're on a 14, it's 106. That's why that's put in place. So if you're getting paid, our 15-day fire schedules gets kind of crazy when they march it all out, but that's basically the way it's set up. So I don't have a problem with the 2-week pay period, but we need to adjust their salary so the guys aren't seeing a decrease in pay, because I don't think that's what the intent was, is all I'm saying.
I've got a question on that same subject, and I didn't see it written in the policy. But the subject has come up recently about whether or not vacation time is used in the calculation of overtime. Everywhere I've ever worked it has been here for the past 6 years. If I have a guy that takes a day of vacation, and he doesn't have scheduled overtime this weekend, but he gets called out on an emergency water leak, is he not gonna get paid that overtime because he took a day of vacation?
No, it gets paid straight time, but by this policy.
This policy says
Unless you
no.
physically
I
work
realize
those
that,
hours.
but in the past, we've always used vacation time in the calculation of overtime. And, in previous jobs that I've held, it was used in the calculation of overtime. So there again, in effect, my guys are gonna end up with a pay cut if they take vacation time.
Our holidays, if you're not physically working 100, those, your hours.
Everywhere all my experience has been that vacation time and holiday time is used in the calculation of overtime. In the calculation of the 40 hours to get to the point that you're drawing overtime. Sick time is not being used in the calculation.
The unintended consequences of trying to do something good, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, it's just minor issues, you just gotta get them worked out, but you gotta figure them all out before you implement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like some of the fire guys, I
Well,
mean, and you got an 8% raise, so therefore their pay went up a couple $1,000. This, I mean, I don't know, overtime wise,
Well,
what
this
the
is gonna
impact would
take
be
that,
per month.
this
but
is gonna
maybe-
take that away from them.
$1,200, I think it dropped a year.
How much?
I think they lost $1,200 a year by going to the 2-week pay period.
On 8%, this is on one of our guys' salaries, on 8% raise, figured from his annual salary, was gonna be $2,851, minus the 2.5 hours OT that he lost, drops him $1,544, so all he'll see in an increase is $1,271 out of that 2,000.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we need to deal with all this stuff. I guess from my perspective, and you guys can take it how you want it, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't talk about this pay period, work period stuff when we were discussing the budget. I mean, that would have been the appropriate time to start talking about this stuff. And I realized
They didn't know the payroll periods were gonna change.
Sure they did.
No.
No.
When did that notification go out about payroll changes?
After the budget,
In the middle of the budget discussion.
after the budget was approved.
So you got that within the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
When do we get it?
I'll go back and look
We
at
sat
that.
down, we had a director's meeting, my second week here, so it would've been August 20th.
All right, that's in, that's in plenty of time to have discussed it. And I've got an email that talks about when we discussed, pay periods and changing from a 1 week to 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, but I think the thing is.
Well, the other thing you gotta understand, my guys work every third day. So when I send in hey, I need your response, then if they just got off work, it's 2 or 3 days before they get a response, you know, they're able to, I mean, they they can't even absorb and they actually figure out what kind of consequences.
I'm not,
these
I'm not
guys
talking,
have.
I'm pointing this directly at you and Kenny and the department heads. This is on you guys to
Well-
have been prepared to discuss this during budget.
In all
I mean, again,
fairness,
this.
I didn't know about the not using overtime, or not using, vacation
Okay,
time until
fair enough.
last week when Willie's, check, it was some mistake, he brought it back and to get it corrected, and
That's
I
where the question
fixed it
came up,
corrected.
that we were saying,
That's
hey,
when the
what's,
question
you know.
came up, so I didn't know anything about it. The 2-week pay period is fine, I don't have a problem with that.
What are the circumstances in which, I guess, you know, look, when I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation, you call me, you're getting a voicemail, I'm not showing up for any overtime. What are the circumstances where that actually happens?
If I've got a guy that takes a
All
day
right,
of vacation.
police and fire are
Okay.
exempt from those.
Are you asking me, Roy?
Yes.
If I've got a guy that takes a day, let's just say John takes a day of vacation this week, take his, kid to the zoo, he wants to go out and have to spend time with his family. Well, he's not scheduled for, any overtime this weekend, so he thinks he's cool, right?
Yeah,
But then I have a big water leak this weekend, or somebody's sewer backs up, I have to call out, you know, my people. I've demanded that he come out and do this work. So, does he not get overtime for that?
Yeah, or at night, you know. when
At
you got-
night?
Yeah, when you got.
Or we're in the middle of a leak that goes awry, and we have to stay till 7, 8 o'clock at night?
You call your entire department out to deal with that?
I have a small department, boy. Yes, sometimes we have to call out the whole department, but also, out of those 7 employees, I've probably got 3 that I need on, you know, certain things. 4, including myself.
One's gotta do traffic, one's gotta do the backhoe, and 2 of them gotta.
Well, I can call out some of those lesser employees to do that, but if I've got a line that's bust, we're fixing, you know, live, or I've got a lift station that's down, that we're working on pumps, electrical stuff, yeah, I've gotta call out my key people.
But I think that the whole situation here is the pay schedule. What we're looking for is, you wanna go to a 2-week schedule, and then the things like Mike and him brought up, those are things that unintentional that we can correct. And they were in the budget, I mean, the guy, the money was there for them, it's just that through a technicality, you decreased it.
I think the schedule is great, I just wanna see us continue to use vacation time in the calculation of our overtime.
No, and again, Mike, I'm not trying to intentionally pick on you. I wanna do what's right by the police and fire departments. We didn't give you a raise to take it away in a change to the pay structure. I guess I'm just a little frustrated we're gonna go back and have to do an amendment to a budget when we should have dealt with this stuff.
You're not amending the budget,
We're not
you're getting
amending
the
the
same
budget.
amount of money.
It's the same money. It'll be less money if we
There's-
divvied up this policy.
Okay.
Mike, I don't know, couldn't the pay still be figured the way it's always been figured, but they just get a paycheck every 2 weeks?
No.
Huh?
Not the way this policy is.
Well, okay, but.
No, if you're on a 2-week pay schedule, that's just like 31 hours.
Okay,
Or whatever.
that's fine.
I do 14 hours.
I'd like to see vacation and holidays considered in the 80-hour pay period as a calculation of overtime.
Since we're arguing real big, I didn't notice holiday pay in anything other than straight time for officers or firemen working holidays.
Well, that was a big controversy before.
Yeah, that's what the big conference was.
No, we've always given,
No, we pay, you know, we
that
pay.
was what the big deal was, but.
No, we didn't pay them at all for holiday if they worked.
Yeah, okay, cool.
But, you know, now everybody gets like X number of hours, and then they get that many holidays a year, period, you know, plus their salary. Then it's just at straight time. Cause we don't pay anybody else vacation, you know, holiday pay, we don't pay them time and a half, Kenny doesn't get time and a half for.
If I had to work, if I had to come out and work on it, I would get the holiday pay. Well, I don't, but my guys would get the holiday pay, plus they would get time and a half for each hour they work. So, yes, in effect, they would get
If you were working.
time and a half for the hours they work. Because you
Okay,
use
so
the holiday pay is part of the calculation for, the 80-hour work week.
So the old policy says compensation for holidays, for purposes of this subsection, for subsection, holidays means the date that actually observed is determined under subsection F1. Below, non-exempt regular full-time employees receive pay at the regular hourly rate for 8 hours per holiday regardless of whether or not the employee works on the holiday. In addition to said payment, all regular full-time employees that are scheduled or authorized to work on a holiday and who actually work on a holiday shall be paid at their normal hourly rate for the hours actually worked. This policy shall also apply to part-time employees who work at least 30 hours per week, not less than 40, except that part-time employees receive pay at half
So you
the
get-
regular hourly rate.
So this sounds like they get double pay
No,
if they work on a holiday.
They don't get double pay.
That's something we correct,
We fixed that.
fixed that last time.
Yeah.
They get 8 hours.
We fixed it, but it's not in that policy.
Yeah, and
It
this.
is in that policy. It's written just exactly like that. If he works on a holiday, he gets paid for that day. And then he gets a holiday pay. Just because he was working, you know, before we tried to take it away from him. If you worked on a holiday, you didn't get paid for a holiday.
You got paid 8 hours straight across.
Yeah, you just
the
got
board,
paid
whether
8
you work or
hours.
not.
But now
The
he
difference
gets
is
to work because he had to
regular
work
city's
on
down,
that.
they're off on-
He gets paid for that 8 hours, plus he gets 8 hours of holiday pay.
I like your 2-week pay period, by the way.
I do too.
I do too. But it just needs some tweaking when it needs.
Actually, the 2-week pay period is better for the police officers than it is for the firemen.
It should be better for everybody.
And it saves y'all money too.
I try to give